Hi everyone, so this is Miss O'Connor, head of the Business Studies department. Today I'm going to bring you through a few topics that you'll look at once you start sixth form in Homer Green. So the spec we are going to be using is the AQA A Level Business Studies spec. Along with going through the different topics you will be looking at, you guys are going to complete some activities that would be typical in a business studies classroom. So what I'd like you to do is to email the activities or your responses to the activities to o'connorm@homer.org.uk, and I can have a look. Okay, so before moving on to the subject content, I would like to just remind you that when you come back in September, or when you start sixth form in Homer Green, I will be looking for the bridging work to be completed, and you will need to hand in the work you completed in our first lesson. Okay. So the subject content. So basically, A-level business is, for the first year in year 12, you are going into way more depth on everything that you would have looked at for the past 3 years in GCSE business. So we will look at different types of businesses, ownership, different ways a business can be run. We will look at different people's traits or the way they deal with risk and responsibility. We will look at how the 4 Ps are essential in order to increase revenue. In actual fact, we'll look at 7 Ps next year. We will look at how the business is run and how the products are made. We'll look at the financial books, so we'll look at profit and loss accounts. We'll complete a lot of ratio analysis, a lot of profitability measures, and then finally in year 12. Okay, and then finally we will look at human resources, so we'll look at employee training, productivity, efficiency, etc. And then typically by the end of year 12 we will look at unit 7, where we go over PESTEL, where we look at the external environment and how the external environment affects businesses. You will look at business strategy, so how a business has become successful or how they've responded to the external environment by changing their business strategy or direction. And then we will look at how a business can manage change. So I'm sure a lot of you would be more aware than, say, the year 12s previously on how businesses can be affected by the external environment, especially if you look at coronavirus now. A lot of businesses were closed. That put a pause on a lot of business revenue, etc. So we'll look at a lot of case studies, a lot of business information or businesses information in order to make a well-rounded, structured answer. This course is very content subject heavy, so a student or students of this course should study business in different contexts. So we'll look at small and large businesses. Why would a larger business be more likely to receive a loan over a smaller business? We'll look at credit ratings. We'll look at how large businesses compete in different countries. Then we'll look at whether or not your business is a domestic business that only operates in one country or if it's global, whether your business is a service business or manufacturing, because that will impact your operations department or the way you market your products, etc. So it's seriously really important to understand different business contexts. So what I typically would ask you now to do is I would ask you to research different businesses, and I would ask you to invest in a little notepad or some index cards, and it would be a good time now to start researching different businesses and writing down some information on those businesses, because it will really help you over the next 2 years. It's important to understand a business's competitors also, and how environmental and ethical issues impact businesses. It's seriously a big topic when it comes to paper 2 and 3, when understanding context and things like that. And then you will need to be able to use quantitative data. So you'll be asked to complete some maths or financial equations. Don't worry, it's typically, it only takes up about a third of the paper, but once you understand the formulas, etc., you will be confident. So don't worry if the maths bit scares you. Okay, so how will you be assessed? So at the end of year 13, you will sit 3 different exam papers. The first paper will have 15 multiple choice questions, each worth a mark. Then section B, it's typically questions around 5 marks to 9 marks. And then section C and D, you get a choice of 2 questions in section C, 2 questions in section D, and you have to pick one from each section, and the question is worth 25 marks. And that is where you will use a lot of the context that you would have researched over the last 2 years of the course. So that's why I think it's really important to start making that book now, building that up. And again, all 3 exam papers are worth the same amount of marks. They're weighted the same percentage, and they're all 2 hours long, and they test on every bit of the paper, or sorry, every bit of the specification. Paper 2, it's extremely data heavy or numeracy heavy, where you have to interpret facts, figures, graphs, etc., and that would help you make a more rounded answer. And then question 3, you get one large case study that looks at the background of a business and comes up or will mention different problems the business is having. And then you will typically get around a page or 2 pages of data that you will need to use in order to justify your decision. So again, all papers are worth the same amount of marks, and they're weighted the same. Okay, so here's an example of an essay that an A-level candidate has or would have written up in the last 2 years. So A-level business is very much written based. So there is a lot of information that we need to get through in the 2 years, and you will be typically asked to complete 16 to 25 markers, at least one a week, and they look similar to the one on the screen. Don't be frightened, because again, like every year 12 student, I'm sure it's a bit daunting now looking at the amount that's written. This will take time, and you will have enough practice done by the time you are in year 13. But typically I would be looking for the standard by October or Christmas time in A-level business student. Okay, so here is a task I'd like you to do. So if you could just find out the market share data for each of these markets. So the UK supermarket, so you would look at Tesco's market share, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, etc. Mobile phone manufacturers, so you'd look at Apple's market share, Samsung's market share. Car manufacturers, so like Toyota, Fiat, etc. High street retailers, market share, and travel firms. Okay, because it's really useful in business to have a good background knowledge of key markets, because typically you will be asked or you will be given information on specific businesses. So it would be, you would definitely stand out, or you would stand apart from the person beside you that hasn't done that background information check, or that doesn't have that background knowledge, because you will be able to show off to the examiner that you've went above and beyond. So in each case, identify which is the biggest firm, so who is the market leader, and then by how much are they in the lead. And then research whether there have been any changes in the last 10 to 20 years and the impact this has had on the markets above. So for example, in the travel market, we can see, or we have seen, the emergence of Jet2 and the decline of Thomas Cook and First Choice and TUI merging. Okay, so you can pause this video and you can complete this task. Once you have this task completed, I'd like you to complete some calculation practice. So you would have looked at break-even charts in year 11. So what I'd like you to do again is pause this video, and I would like you to draw a break-even chart using these figures or these facts. Okay, so pause this video. Okay, and you should have drawn something similar to what's on the screen now. Okay, so that would be an example of a typical numeracy question. Typically, they would be a bit more difficult, but that's just as an introduction. You'll also be asked to calculate different ratios. So ratios is a large element of this course. So you look at your profitability ratios, or figures where you would work out your gross profit margin, net profit margin, operating profit margin, etc. You'll look at how many days it takes your customers to pay you, how many days it takes you to pay back your suppliers. You'll look at how much debt you have in the business in comparison to assets. So again, in paper 1, you will typically be asked a 25 marker will typically be surrounded by ratios in some sense. Okay, and then I would like you to just go through the different questions in each of the boxes and answer them. These would be typical questions or introduction questions you would get for the first unit that we'll look at in September. But again, these are only 1 or 2 mark questions. Typically, you will be working on 16 to 25 markers, but this just as a brief introduction. So if you could pause this video and answer these questions, it would be amazing. Okay, so all of these questions should be answered now if you're reading the video. So what I'd like you to do is, if you have any further questions, please email me on the email address on the screen, o'connor@homer.org.uk. I would also like you to email me all the work you completed throughout this video, or if you have any questions on the activities I asked you to complete. But other than that, I am looking forward to seeing you all in September, which isn't too far away. So I will see you then.